Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Exercise Your Rights. Today, we're here with YVETTE Tan. I'm going to say the YVETTE Tan that wrote Siquijor, which is what we're talking about today. And we're going to hear a reading of it. And that title has more meaning to it than you might think. I'm like, my mind is blown to where that title comes from. So, first, welcome, YVETTE. Thank you so much for being on the show again. I always love having you. And tell me about Siquijor and like where did you start writing this collection of stories? And yourself,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Who are you? And then let's talk about this exciting book.
Thank you for inviting me back, Angela. So I am YVETTE Tan. I'm a Manila-based horror writer. I have written two books in English. First one is called Waking the Dead. I have a copy here. Yay, Waking the Dead. The other one is called Siquijor. Um, yes, so I do a lot of things. I used to be a freelance writer. Right now, I am an agricultural editor in the Philippines, but I also do a lot of things in horror and true weird. So I'm a paranormal researcher. Um, I love the Fortean stuff, and obviously a horror writer. I'm an HWA member as well. So yes,
Awesome. Awesome. And there it is in my phone. So
yay!
I will be reading this later on today. I didn't know you were a supernatural researcher. That's like very cool.
It's it's very hard to do because nothing gets written down here. So everything is like going through oral history, even though it's 2023.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually just found out about the Shimanchu, which is the Okinawans, which is my grandmother was at. There's no written language. And I was like, what? How can there not be a written language? Like, my mind can't conceive of that. Like, what do you mean you don't write everything down? I don't know if I am my grandmother's granddaughter. No, that's very cool. So how did Siquijor come about? Like what inspired this collection?
um, Siquijor came about because the stories here have been running around for about 10, 20 years. Siquijor, the story itself, was published in 2008, for example. The collection came about because my first collection, Waking the Dead, which was published in 2009 and reissued in 2021, did very well. So my publisher was like, "Do you have other stories?" And I'm like, "Funny you should ask." I have enough 20 years worth right here. I'm a very, very slow writer. So yeah, there. That's how it came about. And it also did well. So I'm very grateful to everyone who bought and who liked the stories and who were, yeah.
That is so awesome. Some of the stories, I'm going to look at the Amazon page now. Very interesting stories, and they really reflect the Filipino culture, like the culture that you live in right now.
Mhm.
We have Siquijor, which I'm so excited to talk about that title. Um, but we also have and I'm going to say these names all wrong, a brothel in Poblacion.
Poblacion.
Pleb-
It's a hip place in one of our business districts.
oh,
It's where
okay.
all the young people congregate now. But when that story was written 15 years ago, more than 20 years ago, it was a seedy place. So this is where all the sex tourists went. That's hence the brothel.
That's funny. Yeah, and isn't that the way it seems to go? Like first it's a seedy place, and so then all the cool people move in, and then now it's a cool hip place.
Yes.
That's so funny. And then you have Angela City, zombie-infested Angela City. Is there an Angela City in the Philippines?
Yes, Angeles City.
Angela.
Yes, Angeles, like Los Angeles. It's a city in Pampanga. It's known for Pampanga is a province that's really, really known for its cuisine. So everyone there is proud of their cooking. And Angeles City is where sisig, which is the dish in the story. So it's basically a mix of pig face, so cheeks, ears, nose, the things that you don't usually eat. It's mashed up and then fried with onions and it depends on who cooks it. Sometimes it's fried with pig brain, or if you don't have brains, you can use mayonnaise to give it a slightly what do you call that? It's not slimy, slimy-ish
Like it
texture.
oily, like an
It's very, very oily, but it's
okay.
so good. Like it's served on a sizzling plate. It sounds horrible, but it's so delicious.
No, it
So
actually sounds quite good.
so that's where it was born, Angeles City, which is why that story is set there, and specifically in a place. The invention of sisig is credited to Aling Lusing, this restaurant owner whose restaurant also features in that story. So it's very, very grounded in Filipino culinary history, and also it's a zombie apocalypse. Everyone has a zombie apocalypse story, but I feel that mine is different because the people who are in the story have a very specific goal in mind, and it's not your usual I have to get to a place, I have to survive. Theirs is very, I'm so tired, I just want one good thing.
Ooh, that's very cool take on it. Because in a survival situation, that I think that winds up being what people kind of focus on. I mean, we've all kind of had a few survival situations in the last couple of years. And it does seem like that's kind of like mine was licorice. I just want to have black licorice before I die. And then, of course, I gained 20 pounds because I didn't stop eating the black licorice. But,
But it made you happy.
it did. And it was very much that goal of like, I don't care what happens. I'm just going to do this thing that makes me happy. So, well,
Yeah,
very cool.
I gained 20 pounds, so I know how you feel.
Yeah, now I'm like, I need another disaster to take it off, but it's okay. We don't have to do that.
We don't have to do that. I'm happy. I
Yeah,
don't need, yeah.
I can also just be chunky. It's okay.
That story, by the way, was written as a request because a friend of ours, mine and the person who requested it, Alexis Chosejo, a film critic, Filipino-Canadian film critic, was murdered in the Philippines. He and his girlfriend were murdered in their house.
Oh, no.
And yeah, it was a inside job. And me and some of his friends, because we used to work in the same magazine, and we wanted to put out an issue dedicated to him. And I was asked to write this story. I don't think it was used. I'm not sure if it was used, but that's the genesis of the story. His favorite dish was sisig.
Oh, wow. That is such a tribute. And very cool to have the backstory of that. So I'm actually glad that we had this conversation before I started reading it, because now the stories are going to have so much more depth because I'll understand a little bit more.
Oh, I'm glad. I like infusing my stories with a lot of backstory that the reader doesn't need to know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Oh, that's
but
very...
they're personal to me sometimes.
Yeah. Well, let's talk, and we're going to hear you read one of these stories, and it's going to be the story from the title. But I want to talk a little bit about Siquijor and Siquijor. Did I say that right? I probably didn't say that right. So just for anybody who didn't know, like, unlike me, I obviously know, though. I found out like 5 minutes ago. Siquijor, I'm probably saying it wrong, is actually a town in the Philippines, right?
It's a province.
A province, and it's Siquijor, which, if you say it slowly, comes out
Siquijor, the title of the book.
Yeah, so that's so awesome, but it's also such an amazing title of a book. Like, as now everybody's like, what are you talking about? Okay, so those of you that are listening on podcast, I'm sorry, but the book is Siquijor, Seekwhore, and then the town, or the province of Siquijor.
Yes. I've heard of people actually getting into trouble because of the book. Because if you look, we're a very conservative country. So if you are a person of a certain age and you see the word whore, it's pearl clutching time. So I have a friend who's an older gentleman who bought a copy of the book, and his wife got mad at him, and she's like, "Oh, so you're reading smut now?"
And that's so funny. No, it's a typo on the province, obviously. Gosh. Well, I am so excited to listen to some of this. What are you going to read us? Like, what story is this?
So I'm going to read Siquijor. So I'm just going to read the first part because it's divided into 8 weeks. I'll just read from week 0 until the first part of week 1.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Whenever you're ready, I'm excited to hear this. I'm going to give you the whole screen.
All right. Before I begin, I just like to explain that Siquijor in the Philippines, so it's a province, which is you can only reach it via ferry from the city of Dumaguete. So it gets its name from the Spanish for island of fireflies, because when we were colonized by the Spanish for 400 years. So when they arrived, they saw this island full of fireflies. And here in the Philippines, the belief is if a place is full of fireflies, it's enchanted. It's also very pristine because no fireflies will congregate where pollution is. Now, Siquijor is known as the island of witches. That's its reputation. It may or may not be true but the reputation is a lot of local practitioners that live there. So there's a thing where every Good Friday is when everyone goes into town and makes their potions, because it's believed that every Good Friday, when at 3 p.m. Jesus dies. So from 3 p.m. Good Friday all the way until sunrise on Easter Sunday, you can do anything you want because God is dead. So that's when everyone starts making their potions. So that's the backstory of this island, which is important to the story.
That's funny. That's awesome. And also, you heard it here. You know now when you can do all the bad stuff.
Yes.
So go get your copy of Siquijor if you're going to get in trouble for that from 3 p.m. on Good Friday. If you never get it before then, definitely get it then. Awesome. Well, I am very excited to hear this. And then afterwards, I want to ask you if you've ever had a supernatural experience or anything on Siquijor. Or yes.
The
On
answer is
Siquijor,
yes.
Right?
Yes, it's on. Yeah. So I'll begin?
Yes. I'm going to give you the whole screen, and then just read as long as you want. And I'm going to be listening off stage in rapt attention.
All right. Okay, everyone, I'm going to be reading from Siquijor. Week 0. Foster remembered exactly when he got it into his head to get married. It was the time he leaned over his cubicle to see Donovan taking a bite out of a dripping, overstuffed roast beef on rye, too big, too thick, and too appetizing to have come from the cafeteria. New restaurant, he asked, trying to sound as nonchalant as possible. He had a weakness for roast beef on rye. Heck, he had a weakness for food in general, especially when they looked like they had come straight out of a Bon Appetit recipe. The bread just the right shade of brown, the beef sliced in equal thinness. Nope, Donovan said. My wife made it. Donovan took a big sloppy bite, getting a bit of gravy on his cheek. Foster found himself wiping his own cheek, but catching drool on the back of his hand instead. He wasn't distracted enough, though, to remember what Donovan had just said. That was news to him. Since when have you been married? He asked. Officially 2 weeks ago, Donovan said, mouth half full. Foster was surprised. Donovan had always struck him as the perpetual bachelor type. Receding hairline, puppy dog eyes, cheeks that were slowly turning into jowls, and the carefree manner of a once athletic frat boy, he was forever sending the receptionist into giggling fits over one thing or another. As a cubicle neighbor, he was okay, never bothering Foster except for the occasional paperclip or little small talk that was essential to corporate survival. Congratulations, Foster said. He would have shaken one of Donovan's hands, but they were currently busy with the sandwich. Thanks, he said. So what's it like, Foster asked, being married? It's great, Donovan exclaimed, spewing out pieces of roast beef. It's like a vacation. I wake up, the wife's made breakfast and packed my lunch. I eat, she kisses me off, I go to work. I get home, the house is sparkling, the wife's made dinner and has a bud chilling in the fridge for me. Some nights we chill and watch TV, but most of the time, he paused, then said, with eyes closed as if remembering, we fuck like making it up, or he had found the most perfect, gullible woman in the world. Want to see your picture? Donovan asked. popping the last of the sandwich in his mouth and licking his fingers. This was the longest conversation Foster had ever had with his neighbor, and now he knew why. The man was a self-centered misogynist, but he had piqued his curiosity, him and his goddamn sandwich. Foster didn't even realize that lunch hour was almost over, and he hadn't gone out to eat, focused as he was on Donovan. Donovan wiped his fingers on the napkin that his wife no doubt had packed for him, then, probably out of habit, on his pants before fishing out his wallet from his back pocket. He flipped it open. Foster found himself staring at a photograph of Donovan with his arms around the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She had long black hair, big expressive eyes, milk chocolatey brown skin, and lips you could lose yourself in. She was wearing a satin spaghetti strap blouse and no bra, her nipples hard through the fabric. Foster could imagine Donovan's swarthy hands groping her, even as she smiled devotedly at him. And he could tell that it would be very easy indeed to fuck like rabbits with her. That she could also cook almost blew his mind. "She's hot," he said before he could stop himself. "Isn't she?" Donovan agreed. "She's perfect." "She's way out of your league. How did you get her to marry you?" "Found her on the internet," Donovan said. "You mean you met her on the internet?" "No, found. She's a mail-order bride from the Philippines. You know how eager those third-world chicks are to marry white guys. I picked her out, paid for her to come over, married her, and now I live like a king." His statement didn't sit well with Foster. How pathetic did you have to be to buy a bride online? Yet, as one side condemned the practice as inhumane, another part of him was thinking what a good deal it was. "What's the URL?" Foster asked. Siquijorbrides.com. Siquijor, Foster repeated. "This isn't a porn site, is it?" "It's a province in the Philippines, asshole," Donovan said. "Go ask Santiago." Santiago was from the auditing department and the company's token flip. He was initially brought in to fulfill some government quota for hiring minority employees, but was soon doing better than most at the department. He was up for a promotion next month, just after a year in the company. Foster didn't want to ask Santiago about something as silly as a bride-supplying province, but he wanted to make sure that Donovan wasn't pulling his leg either. He excused himself and found Santi just returned to the office after lunch. "Hey, Santi," he said, falling in step with him. "What's up, Foster?" Santiago asked. "Looking for the files on the Thompson account?" "Nothing like that," Foster said, then paused. "It's not work-related." "What is it then?" Santiago asked. "You grew up in the Philippines, right?" "No," Santiago said carefully. "I grew up in Georgia. What's this about?" "Have you ever heard of a province called Siquijor?" Santiago thought for a minute, then said, "Yeah, my parents used to scare us with it when we were kids. They said that everyone who lived there had some nasty occult stuff going on. Why?" Helping my niece with homework," Foster said. "Thanks, man." Santiago shrugged. "Not a problem." That's how Foster found himself checking out Siquijorbrides.com. And that's when he decided that he wanted to get married. The name of the website was misleading. That was the first thing Foster realized. The women on the site didn't look like what Foster thought of as whores. Beautiful, all of them, with smooth brown skin and gorgeous eyes framed demurely by a curtain of dark lashes and soft, inviting lips. Their headshots, though inexpertly done, looked more like model portfolios than ID pictures. Their full-body shots had them in tank tops and miniskirts or hot pants, indulging in domestic duties like cooking and cleaning and doing the laundry. It would have been absolutely ridiculous if the girls weren't so hot. The site was written in substandard but passable English, with the women grouped according to their domestic specialty: cooking, housekeeping, laundry, and so forth. Foster studied their profiles, wondering if he should pick Nora, who loved to clean around the house, or Vilma, who was the top student in her high school English class, or Gloria, who loved the laundry, if only because the statement made him laugh. He was beginning to call the whole thing off, to chalk it up to a silly disconnect in his brain when he happened upon Luli. He didn't know what it was that made her stand out, that drew him to her. Maybe it was the mischievous twinkle in her eyes, or the slight upturn of her mouth that made it look like she was neither smiling nor frowning, or her sweet, innocent face that made it look like she needed saving. She was perfect. In her full body picture, she was bending down against an open oven, caught in the act of bringing out a Thanksgiving turkey. Foster felt his pants tighten. Her shorts were so tiny he could see the lower part of her ass, while her low-cut tank top showed off her ample cleavage, which, despite the downward angle, seemed to defy gravity. The turkey shelled in her hands was plump and perfectly brown. Foster could almost see the juices bursting from inside it, its stuffing cooked just right, something to truly give thanks for. Luli listed her talents as cooking, singing, and her interests as learning new recipes. Before he knew it, Foster was clicking the Marry Me button under her picture and entering his credit card number into the processing form. She didn't come cheap, but overall, he spent less than he expected, especially on her travel expenses. He was told that his transaction was a success and that he should be expecting his first shipment in 3 to 6 weeks or after the papers were processed, whichever came first. Foster did a double take. Did he just get conned into spending 3 months' salary for a blow-up doll? Or maybe they were going to ship her stuff first and have her come by plane later. Or did they treat women so much like stock that they actually referred to them that way? And what did first shipment mean? Was there a second, a third? Did she have so much stuff that they couldn't fit it on a plane? Foster needed to know, but he didn't want to come off like a fool. In the end, he swallowed his pride and asked Donovan about it. That's right, Donovan said when asked about the packages. It's like some miracle of science. That's why the shipping cost is so low. Foster pressed further. I don't want to spoil it for you, Donovan grinned. Only don't fucking freak out and, just add water. Foster spent half of the next 3 weeks in anticipation over Luli's arrival and the other half in jealousy of Donovan and his daily lunches. On Monday, it was a giant pastrami sandwich with Cobb salad and a peach. Tuesday, it was a greasy, heart-stopping sloppy joe with home fries and homemade applesauce. Wednesday, it was a Caesar's chicken sub with oversized homemade chocolate chip cookies. By Thursday, Foster had taken to staying longer in the cafeteria so he wouldn't have to be tortured by the sight of Donovan munching on his appetizing meals made by his appetizing wife. Week 1. The first package came early, 19 days after Foster had clicked Marry Me. It was a long, thin cardboard box labeled fragile. At first, he thought that it was from someone else, like his mother maybe, or that it had been sent to him by mistake. But it had his name and his home address on it, as well as the SiquijorBrides.com logo, a stylized head wearing a veil, but no name or address. He opened the package, his hands trembling in anticipation. And then he began to scream. It was a leg, a human leg, a woman's right leg and foot, her toenails clipped short and painted bright red. Foster held it in his hands, not knowing what to do. And then it flexed. That's it. That's all I'm going to read. I hope you guys pick up the book and read the rest. You're on mute.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the reading if any sound came through. No, I said, well, this interview is over because I have to go get the book now. I have to go read this and finish it. That is fantastic. So, I want to ask you why you air quoted for recipes, because you're like, and learning new recipes.
No, I think that was the journalist in me, because in my head, he was reading from the website, and in the website it literally said learning new recipes.
Oh, that's so funny.
But everything else was just a bad English, like intentionally bad English.
Yeah. That's funny because I'm like, what kind of recipes then if they got air quotes? Well, you put a lot of food.
Actually, that's
in your
interesting
work.
Because that does, now that you mentioned it, that does figure into it. I didn't think of it that way.
That's what I thought, is like, this is foreshadowing. YVETTE TAN is giving us like physical foreshadowing right now. So awesome. I love how you have food so much and such rich descriptions of food in pretty much everything so far. Like, we have so much delicious food, but it also seems like a metaphor for almost like bondage of women, or maybe that's our worth is, well, we cook well. This is what we're good for. Did you put that in there intentionally, or are you a foodie?
I love to eat. So it's actually why I'm in agriculture, because I don't want to starve, and also because I feel that if you want a real life horror story, just look at our agriculture industry.
Hmm.
So food does figure a lot here, and my like at first glance, people will think it's a sex story, but if you really read into it, you'll realize it's really a food story.
Hmm. Yeah, well, food and sex are so linked too because also, we refer to them the same way. Like that was she was delicious. We don't mean we're really eating somebody. Maybe in this story, we'll find out. But
Yeah,
and
I,
sex
I
the same way.
yeah, I will say that this story is the one that is universally loved because it brings everyone together. Like the
Hmm.
straight guys love it, the feminists love it, the activists love it. Like it's the one story that brings them all together.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you mentioned before you started reading that you have a real life supernatural experience on Siquijor. Well, I'm never going to forget that name now.
Yeah, yes, I did. I've only been there once, so it's a lovely island. If anybody has a chance to visit Siquijor, please visit Siquijor. It's gorgeous. It's postcard perfect beaches. Um, you will just have to get used to the pace there because island life is very, very, very relaxed. But yeah, so as I mentioned, that it's known for being the island of witches. So a lot of local practitioners, they're not really witches, they're local practitioners who tend to congregate there. So when I was there, before I left, I was going to go there for work. Before I left, I was with a friend who's sensitive. This was before I'm intuitive myself now, but I wasn't back then. And this friend said, "Okay, watch out for a mother and son." And I'm like, "Mother and son? Why should I watch out for a mother and son? I'm not. I'm going there for work. I'm not leaving the resort." I used to be a freelance writer, so food, travel, culture. So I was there for a travel piece. So I go to Siquijor, had adventures, came back, and this started when I was in Manila. So I'd write, but when I type, my thumbs would have lives of their own, like very, very bad muscle spasms. Like they move along the keyboard so fast and so hard, like keys would actually be pressed. So I'd have to delete, delete, delete. So at first I thought muscle spasm maybe because I'm disabled and who knows what goes on in this body. But then I figured I've never had this before. So this must be something else. So I went back to my friend. She prayed over it. She's Christian. She prayed over it. It was gone after 2 days. So I'm like, oh, so I guess it really was something supernatural. So I thought back. Um, mother and child, mother and child. Then I remembered uh, I did go out of the hotel because Siquijor has a bunch of tourist attractions. So there's hundreds of year old baletes or banyan tree there that you can see that they say is enchanted, and it's so big that you can go inside its roots. And there's also a waterfall. So I didn't go to the waterfall because I'm disabled, so I couldn't go down. So I stayed by the side of the road and I bought mineral water from a stall manned by a mother and child. So I feel that I wasn't cursed. There's a thing here in the Philippines called bate, which is kind of like the evil eye, but with good intentions. So if it usually happens to children. So if, for example, you have a baby and then you meet someone and somebody goes, "Oh, your child's so cute." They all, once they say that, they have to like take some saliva and wipe it on either the child's forehead or belly to undo whatever accidental curse, evil eye thing they might have done to it. So I think that's what happened. Like they probably thought, oh, tourist, hello. Didn't realize that it it it, it, it caused something negative.
Yeah. Oh, very, very interesting and cool. And yeah, kind of like one of those things where we really have to mind our words and our intentions because you never know where those things are just going to go flopping around, what they're
Yeah,
going to do to somebody. That is
exactly.
very, very cool. Well, Siquijor is now on my list to visit. I was just talking to Linoff about like these are the things on my list that I want to go. I want to start doing traveling after I get my visa here in Brazil. Then I can travel. I can't leave yet, but then so that is now on my list. So that is very cool.
You should visit him in Cebu. Cebu is a lovely province, and the food there is delicious also.
Yeah, I kind of suspect that the food everywhere in the Philippines is probably delicious. So, well, tell me a little bit about where we can find you and what do you have coming up next? I know you said you were a slow writer, but I know you probably have something coming up.
You can find me on YVETTETAN.com with my blog, which I'm trying to update more regularly. I write, it's not all horror though. So I write about horror, true weird, which includes horror, some food security and agriculture, and some travel and culture.
Awesome.
So it's a mix. Yeah, if I could only focus on one thing, I would have an easier life, but no. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Yvette_Tan. You can find my book. My books are in the Philippines. You can get them online through my publisher, Anvil Publishing. But overseas, you can find them in any ebook provider. If you're in Canada, I think Aswang Project also has them for sale.
Okay.
Aswangproject.com.
Okay, excellent. And I'm going to have all those links down below in the description. So if you're watching this right now, just go down. If you're listening to it on podcast, just go down and find those links and click on them and definitely get this book. I have to find out what happens to how the rest of this woman arrives. So, well, thank you so much, Yvette, for being on the show. Thank you for reading part of Siquijor. You're fantastic. I just love everything about you, and I'm excited to find out more.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody else, I'll catch you next week on Exercise Your Rights. Bye-bye.
Bye.